Okay, I'm on a little early, and it's 7 p.m. Eastern on a Sunday, so you know what that means. Virtual piano bar? No, I'm sorry. The virtual piano bar is on a hiatus, and we'll be coming back to that in a week or two, and that date will be announced pretty soon. So I'm coming on at the usual time here from my where I live in Michigan, and just going to chat about music and a little bit about my new course coming up, Music Theory for Singers, kind of based on the jazz idiom mostly. And so I'm here a little 765 going down. Okay. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm getting the template ready, and this is just sort of just a test to get ready for the series of videos that I'm going to be producing for the course. So it's for people who are basically just starting out to learn music theory, although there will be some little tidbits in there for advanced. I didn't bring my earphones, so this is really strange. I can't tell. I think I'm on the air. Yes, I am. I think I am. So anyway, broadcasting without earphones. It's like being here without a net. But I do have a new light, so I think that adds a little ambiance to the atmosphere, to the ambiance, or atmosphere to the ambiance, whichever is correct. And it's still light in northern Michigan here. It stays light for quite a while. I noticed last night at 10:30 you could still see some light in the sky in the distance. That was pretty cool. The weather has been great. It was in the 70s today. I was talking to a friend of mine in Tucson. He said it was 100 and I think it was like 115, something like that, give or take a few degrees. So going to be talking about singers who are wanting to know more about the structure of music. And so the title is, Should Singers Know Their Keys? Well, I mean, that's sort of a rhetorical question, because obviously singers should know their keys. And I'm just checking. I think I am on the air. And as I say, this is a test for all future things to come on this. I don't have a piano. You know, I'm thinking the next lesson, there's going to be a series of about, at least 8 lessons, maybe more. And I think the next one I should have a piano. What my theory is that I'll be able to use this as a Holly Sadner, 115 in Scottsdale. There you go. My darling daughter. By the way, it's Zach Partlow's birthday today. I want to say happy birthday to my grandson, who turns 18 today. So he can vote. He can open up a Robinhood investment account or Merrill Lynch, whatever he wants. So, okay, thanks for the feedback, Holly. And turns 18 today. I remember the day he was born, I was playing a gig in Grand Rapids, not too far from where he was born, in 2002, obviously. So, anyway, thanks for coming. I got the new light. I've got my new lens, new camera, and I'm here at Song of the Morning Yoga Retreat, where I have my house. And we're going to talk about last session we talked about song forms, AABA song form. When you listen to a song, you don't necessarily have to know all this music theory. You're trying to enjoy the song. You may even sing along with it. You may even know the song, how to sing it by heart, but you don't really need to know the song form or the keys or the intervals or the music theory behind it. But in my opinion, if you're going to be more than just a passing singer or amateur singer, if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be a professional singer, you want to know a little bit of music theory, know a little bit about the structure of music. Because as I said last time, there's a lot of very talented singers who are very able to sing in key. They have a repertoire of songs in their heads. They're entertaining. They know how to project. They know a lot of good things, but I think they would do even better if they knew the structure of music and something about what they're projecting, what they're working on, and what they're doing. So especially singers knowing their keys. That this silly question I asked, should singers know their keys? Well, yes, singers should know their keys. Do all singers know their keys? No. There's a larger than there should be percentage of singers who don't know their keys, and sometimes it doesn't really hurt them. They're able to get by on a gig, or even sometimes with a new band, and somehow they're able to get by. Now, I've worked with dozens or maybe hundreds of singers, and it used to bother me a little bit if a singer didn't know their keys, but after I listen to them talk a little bit, I can get an idea what their voice timbre is, their voice pitch is. And then after we sing 3 songs, then I'm pretty much dialed in, and I can, if they're singing standards that I already know, I can pretty much tell what key their songs are going to be in. A lot of singers will bring sheet music, which will already have the keys already have the songs on a chart. We call it a chart in their keys. And sometimes the charts aren't in their keys. They'll have a chart in a certain key, and then at the top says, no, don't do it in this key. Do it in A flat instead. And they go, okay, well, it's up to the piano player or guitar player to know how to transpose the song to the right key, even though the music isn't written in the key that the singer wants it to be played in. Some singers will say, oh, I don't care what key you play it in. I can sing it in any key. Well, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So then you're kind of guessing, and there are very few singers who can sing a song in any key, but not too many. So one thing about, we were talking about song form last time. Songs have a structure. They have an A section. The typical structure for a song, especially in the Great American Songbook, is A, B, A. You'll have 8 measures of a melody, and then that will repeat. And I can't remember what example I used, but I mean, you could pick, I think I used Over the Rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow, da da da, da 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 da, and then it repeats. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, da da da. And then you come to the third section of 8 measures, and that's the B section. That's the bridge. There are some songs have some variation on this, where they'll have a C section. And I was thinking about this. What song would have a C section? Well, some of the Beatles songs do. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's an Irving Berlin song called Cheek to Cheek that goes, heaven, I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. And then that is the A section. A section repeats. Then he goes to a B section. Oh, I'd love to go out dancing, fishing in a river or a creek. Then the B section repeats. So you have A, B, B. And then along comes a C section. Dance with me, I want my arms about you, the charms about you. It's a completely different section. Although that song stays pretty much in the key of C. So you have A, B, B, a C section, and then it goes back to the A. So unusual song form. Irving Berlin, possibly my favorite American songwriter, wrote that song for a movie for Fred Astaire back in the early 30s. And Paul McCartney said that Cheek to Cheek was one of his favorite songs. So I would recommend looking it up on YouTube, Cheek to Cheek. You can hear Fred Astaire's version, or there's probably a billion versions on YouTube. And if you're a singer, try to figure out what key you sing the song in. Well, that brings us to the next topic. How do you find the key, or how do you know for sure what key you should sing a song in? Well, as we know, people's and singers' voices have different ranges. So you're listening to my voice in this range of a male voice, a male vocal. And if you hear a female talking, she'll be talking a little higher like this. And consequently, their singing range is going to be different. So the male range might be here. And then the female could be a higher range, might overlap a little bit with the male vocal range. See, Holly, you're gonna learn enough. You're gonna become a singer one day. Actually, my daughter Holly did sing in church a couple of times back in the day. How old were you then, Holly? About 6, 7 years old. So anyway, to find the key that you're singing, that's what you want to know. You want to know what key you sing the song in. Well, it helps to have a piano keyboard, and I think the next lesson I will have a piano keyboard here. Sing the song all the way through, and when you get to the last note, see if you can match it on the piano keyboard, and that's 95% chance that is the key of the song. So it's more accurate to use the last note of the song to probably get your key. It'll now 95% doesn't mean it's 100%, but it's going to work a lot of the time. So another way to find out what key you sing a song in is when you're singing at a gig, if you're not playing the piano or guitar yourself, ask your piano player or guitarist, what key do I sing that song in? And hopefully they will tell you. Of course, ideally you will tell your accompanist what key you sing the song in before you perform the song. So, but if you have to fiddle around and you're kind of trying stuff at random and tentatively, and finally you settle on a key, you might not have time to discuss this until after the song. So anyway, singers, very helpful to know what keys you sing the songs. I would, if I was a beginning singer, I was not accompanying myself, I accompany myself, of course, on piano, so I automatically know what key the song is in because I have to play the accompaniment myself. I darn well better know. But if you're a singer and you're hiring an accompanist, or you're at open mic night and you're working with sort of a jam session, along the way, try to find out what key you just sang that song in. If the song felt too high for you, then you say, okay, well, if that was in the key of F, I might want to go down to a lower key, like D or something like that, E flat or D. So there you go. Another thing about the keys of a song that you're singing, and this is related to song form. Some of the songs will have their difference, AABA, say. Let's go back to the standard AABA song form. 8 measures in each section. A, 8 measures of A, then another 8 measures of A, 8 measures of B, back to 8. 32 bars total, because you have 4 sections. And there are many, many songs written in this classic song form. As I said, especially in the Great American Songbook. So some of the songs will go to the bridge and it will be a different key. For instance, let's see, I tried to think of some. The Beatles song, Here, There, Everywhere. Here, making each day of the year. da 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 da. Da 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 da, goes into a completely different key. Da 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 da. Goes back to the original key for the last A section. Ba da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. So that's a very interesting songwriting technique. When another thing that's going to help a musician, performer, or a singer to know the structure of music is it will greatly help you if you start writing songs. If you're writing songs and you analyze the structure of many of the great songs, obviously you're going to have knowledge that will help you in songwriting. So knowing these structures will really help. So I'm trying to think. Here, there, everywhere. I think I play it in D. And then the B section goes to F. Or kind of a D minor. So F and D minor are related. We're going to talk about. You don't have to take notes, but we'll talk about all this later as we go along. Now, another great American standard, great American songbook song is Body and Soul. This is originally in the key of D flat, and then and then for the bridge it goes up a half step to the key of D. Da 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 da. I lost my sense of pitch here. Anyway. Da 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 da. And it goes back to the key of D flat. So that's an example of songs that change key for their B section or the bridge. Sometimes called the bridge. There are even songs that change key in the middle of the A section. You can take a song like, here, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, da 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 da, da 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 da. Goes into a different key right at the end of the A section. Very unusual, very creative. And when you listen to the creative songwriting like that, it's very inspiring. I have a story about that song. Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire was written by Mel Torme. And he always gets credit for it. But there's a little sideline to the story. I was playing a gig in Grayling, Michigan on a very hot July day. It was probably around this time of the year. It was very hot. And it was an unusual gig because it was a lunchtime gig. And this particular hotel had a large lunch crowd. People came in and the bar was packed and I was playing piano. And a guy comes up to me and says, "Can you play the Christmas song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire?" And I said, sure, I guess so. So on this hot July day, I played Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire. And then when I got to the bridge, which goes, by the way, goes into yet another different key, he smiled and he started conducting me. And I've come to find out that this was the guy who collaborated with Mel Torme to write the Christmas song. He had a cabin in Grayling, Michigan. And I wish I could remember his name now. He's famous. He used to be an arranger for the Harmonicats back in the late 40s, early 50s. And I said, "You wrote the bridge to that song, 8 Measure?" I said, "Yeah." Mel Torme asked me to help him write the song. And I said, "Don't tell me you were able to retire and buy a cabin in northern Michigan because from that song." And he goes, "Well, yeah, kind of. His name was Robert Wells. Just came to me. So if you can become a creative songwriter, you can also make a lot of money. So if another way to learn the key of a song that you sing a song in is possibly get the sheet music. I know that's old-fashioned to get the sheet music to a song, but you can kind of gauge the range of the song on the sheet music, and then at some point we want to do a little test of your own range. Find out what your highest note is to sing comfortably and what your lowest note is. Look on the sheet music and find out what the highest note on the sheet music is, and then if you need to raise it or lower it, you can do that. A simple way to transpose, that's called transposing, by the way, changing a song on the fly from one key to another key, or is to go by the letter names. If you're going from the key of C to F, you're going up C, D, E, F. You're going up 4 letter note names, which is a fourth. It's called interval. And that brings us to talking about intervals. And by the way, I'm kind of going, it could be either too slow for you because this is stuff you already know, or I could be going over this too fast for you. I don't know if I can find the happy medium yet or not. This is an experiment for the course I'm going to be putting together. But intervals are the distance between 2 notes, basically. So if you're looking at a piano, you can see the piano has obviously black notes and white notes. Well, let's just take the white notes. If you know where middle C is, and that's hopefully many of you know where middle C is. If not, well, you can look it up, I'm sure, on YouTube. But from middle C, and then the next white note is a D. That interval is called a whole step or a major second. So it might be easier to understand intervals using the names that are in the Sound of Music song, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We can go by those names. And this is called solfege, by the way, and that's very helpful instructional music way of instructing in music that's used in Europe more. But I find more and more American music schools are using it because it is a traditional way of learning music. But we can talk about that later. But do, re, mi. So if you go do, re, mi, you're going up 3 letter names or 3 syllable names, the do, re, mi. So that would be a third. And if in the song, from the Sound of Music, from do, re, from do to mi is a third, a major third. So do, re, mi, fa, that covers 4 notes. So that would be called a fourth. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, that covers 5 notes. So that would be called a fifth. So and so on. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. 6 notes, that would be a sixth. And then, of course, if you go up 7 to T, that would be 7 notes. That would be a seventh. And then do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You come back to do at the top. And do, do are the same sounding note an octave apart. Octave means 8. So you could call, instead of calling it an eighth, they call it an octave, the interval of an octave. And then later on, we'll discuss how the intervals have variations, like there's a third, and then there's a minor third and a major third. There's a sixth, a major sixth, and a minor sixth. And the fifth, I guess you can have an augmented fifth and a diminished fifth too. But They're the second. You can also have a minor second. So and those, when you have the variations on the intervals, usually those are the black notes in general. So these intervals, recognizing these intervals is very helpful in learning a song, learning the structure of music, keeping your head in the game. If you see on a piece of sheet music that the melody jumps a seventh, and you have practiced recognizing this, it becomes much easier to do it the next time you do it. So the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is called the diatonic scale, and that is a major scale. Then we also have minor scale. And on a minor scale, you will have, there's two ways to approach a minor scale, the relative minor and the corresponding minor. So if you want a C minor scale, you would flat the third degree of the scale and also the sixth and the seventh degree of the scale. Hey, Clara Green is on. Claire should be teaching me all about music. Clara Green, one of the finest musicians in the land, playing harp for a symphony. I'm not sure what symphony you're with now. You were with the Houston Symphony, I believe, or was it Dallas? Anyway, Clara, nice to see you. I wish I had Zoom so I could talk and see people. But so anyway, I'm going on and on here, but this is going to be sort of a template for, this is a practice run for videos I'll be putting together for very basic harmony for singers and who don't read music, and possibly instrumentalists. There are some instrumentalists out there who actually play very well who don't read music. And in my opinion, if you learn how to read a little bit of music, learn the structure of music, it's going to help you in your performance. So most of the stuff I'm talking about is very basic. It's a little daunting to have Claire Green watching this. Okay. We can go into modes if you want, Claire, and the variations on all the modes. There's dozens, hundreds of them. But no, we don't need to do that. But when also another thing about understanding intervals, scales, is when you're improvising. If you have a grasp of the scale, you have a scope. You have the tools, the mental tools to work with when you're improvising, and when you're putting together your own licks. And as I said before, of course, songwriting, if you're able to understand the intervals and scales. Another thing that happens, oh, you're so sweet, Clara. See, you distracted me now. When you're working with the intervals as a songwriter, or when you're working with a band leader, and you're let's say you're a singer, and you've learned some things about intervals and keys and scales, and the band leader says to the band, and a good band leader can do this if he has the right musicians, says, let's take the last A section up a whole step. And then if you're a singer who doesn't know any music theory, you're going to go, what the heck is he talking about? What is an A section? What is a whole step? And how do I know when I get to this so-called A section? Well, if you know some of the structure, you're going to be able to do some of these things on a fly with maybe a talented band leader. But if he says to go up a half step, then you'll know what to do there too. Or when he maybe says, let's go up a major third. And I've seen, I imagine Alex Graham does that with his band at the Grand Hotel. He'll say, let's go up a half step for the last chorus. Okay. I mean, he has a bunch of talented young lions up there, and they are able to do that with ease, I would think. Okay, well then, once you understand intervals, scales, keys, or at least you start to understand them along the same, at the same time, you're going to want to understand chords, which are harmonizations. Chords are a combination of usually 3 or more notes. I'm not going to get in too deep today. I don't even have a whiteboard. I don't have a piano. My theory is that I may take some of these, edit them, and put them on a podcast so people can listen to this while they're driving in their car. And I don't want to have the distraction of a video of a piano or a whiteboard to distract people, but you can learn some things about music theory just by hearing somebody talk. I'm thinking, that's my theory. I'm going to kind of go on that theory. So, and people drive a lot, people listen to podcasts a lot. And sometimes when you're laying in bed in the dark, you don't want to look at a video either. You want to listen to your podcast. So maybe you can learn some of the things about music theory just by listening to me blah, 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 blah. So the scales, we're starting with 3 or more notes. 3 notes is called a triad. So the basic scale, we're on the piano, the major scale, C scale, starts on a C and goes up to the next C. Well, of course, just to review, in case there's somebody just joining us, the names of the notes are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there's 7 letters, the first 7 letters of the alphabet. There's no H. Sorry. And the C scale starts on C, C, D, E, F, G. Then you start over again at A, B, C. So we're going up the C scale. So, and we're going to come back to this in more detail. You don't have to take notes or write this down or anything, but the basic C chord, C triad, starts on the C as the root note, and then you skip the D, go to the E, skip the F, and go to the G. So you're playing every other note on the piano keyboard, and you have the basic C major triad. Everybody, hopefully, eventually, who's going to take this future course that I'm putting together is going to have access to a piano, because it will be piano-based. And I'll interject videos and whiteboard and whatever I need to do. So, and some people are taking notes. I guess I can't fault you for that. And Claire says, do a jazz podcast on improvisation. Yeah, I will be doing something on improvisation too. And hopefully sooner than later on that. Yeah, we'd love to hear a little bebop on the harp there. I mean, the classical harp. Ooh. I've heard very little of that over the years, but I have heard some. I might have heard Claire. I might have heard you do it a little bit. I can't remember. I heard it somewhere. So that's the basic C triad. If you have a 4-note chord, it can be called a 7th, because most of the time the 4-note chord adds the 7th. So C, E, G, skip the A, go to B. C, E, G, B would be the C major 7th. But you can also have a 4-note chord adding the 6th. C, E, G, add the A. There's a 4-note chord there. Although that is a inversion of an A minor 7th. But you call it a C6 if you have the C in the bass. So we've been talking about the key of C for a little while here, but each note on the piano, and of course there are 7 notes on the white, 7 different named notes on the white keys, and then there's another 5 notes on the black keys. So you have 12 different notes within that span on the piano. So that's 12 different keys that are possible to be played in on the piano. You can play in the key of C, you can play in the key of D, you can play E, F, or you can play in the key of C sharp. If you go to the C sharp, which is the black note right to the right of the middle C. So there's 12 different keys, and in the future, I'm not going to get deeply into this now, but it's really not a bad idea. And it's funny because when I was in, was it junior high school? I might have been even 6th grade. We had a music teacher who came to our class at least once a week. I think it was once a week. And she taught the whole class all the keys. We had to memorize all the flats and sharps. We had to memorize the key signatures for all the keys. We had to know our intervals. And these aren't music students. These are just regular public school music classes. And we had to recognize intervals. She would play intervals on the piano. We'd have a test. And I was already studying music, and I had, kind of to think pretty hard to guess the intervals. I can't imagine people who hadn't had any previous music training, but everybody in the class would learn intervals, key signatures, and scales. So if you're out there listening and you're just listening to music for fun, or don't really have any musical background, or it's still a good thing to learn some of the basics of music theory. And I think the music classes in public schools are way less than they used to be nowadays. It's phasing out. It's really too bad. So just a little historical perspective on chords. A way long time ago, music was only melody. They didn't have chords. Let's pretend. It might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but melody was more the thing in music anyway, many, many years ago. In some of the Eastern cultures, like Indian music is monophonic music. It's all melody and based on a drone in the background, but it's still the classical music of India is basically melodic without the use of chords. What would happen was there would be choirs would get together and they would sing, and somebody would sing one melody, and then somebody would sing a melody that would complement that melody, and that's called counterpoint, by the way. I'm going to talk about counterpoint in a minute. But these melodies would be sung or played by an instrument together, and all of a sudden they realized that at certain points in the melody there would be like a stack of 3 notes, and they would sound really good together. Now, these notes began to be formulated. He says, well, oh, those 3 notes sound good together. They would formulate these notes in the particular situation, and they were formulated to the point where we have music theory based on the chord structures now. Counterpoint is so much related. It's all this is intertwined, all this music theory and jargon. Counterpoint is a way of having 2 different musical parts just to sound good together. In classical counterpoint, you can have people who are able to improvise a harmony part will often sing the parts in thirds or in sixth because it sounds good. I'm trying to think. I wish I could think of an example. If you ever hear that old Everly Brothers song, "Dream, Dream, dream, dream. And people who sometimes may not even know much about music or anything about music theory are able to harmonize a part, and it sounds good because it's it's a third away from the melody, the interval of a third that we just talked about before. And that's part of classical counterpoint. If you have parallel melodies in thirds or sixths, that's correct, so-called correct counterpoint. And if you have melody that goes in contrary motion from each other, opposite directions, that's correct. Or if it goes away from or toward each other, and that's something I think that's something that's going to be part of my course, because I think it's not something you learn typically on the street. Some people who have a natural ability in music are able to understand this pretty easily and actually apply it pretty easily. So classical counterpoint, having two different musical parts sound good together, basically. Let's call it that. And then there's rules and formulations for that. So and then we can talk about these chords, how the voicings and how you use these chord symbols that you see on musical lead sheets. A lead sheet is the melody of a song with a chord symbol above it, and a player is expected to conjure up his own arrangement just based on that. There's no other notes, a melody and a chord symbol. And musicians are expected actually to come up with their own arrangements, kind of based on pre-formulas that they use on other songs. But sometimes it's a song they've never played before. You're playing it professionally using a lead sheet, and you come up with your own arrangement. So do singers use lead sheets? Well, as I said, if you know something about music theory and what we've been talking about, you can get the lead sheet from your bass player or piano player, and you can say, oh, and then you can recognize the key, and you say, you can make sure the song is in your key first really quickly, if you're pretty fast on this stuff after you get in practice. And then you can tell everybody else in the band that the key of the song, just based on it. Hopefully no more than 5 or 10 seconds of deliberation before you start a song. So there you go. Improv is based on knowing some of this theory on counterpoint, harmony, chords, and then at some point we'll also talk about scat singing, which is improvising somewhat like a horn player as a singer, and that's a whole nother. And I don't think it's necessary to be a good scat singer to be a good singer, but we might touch on that a little bit in the future. So, any questions? Most of this is pretty basic stuff. A lot of you know this already, or maybe you don't. But hopefully it'll be helpful. And thanks for watching this far. And I will see you the next time. How are you doing? We did about 40 minutes. So thanks for watching, and thanks for the messages. I don't know if maybe Holly, my daughter, is going to be a singer someday. Who knows? And Claire is going to be a bebop harp player. Cynthia's taking notes. She's getting ready to do some performances, I think. And we'll see you all later. Bye.